Hello, Yellows, and welcome to this week's TNC Oppo. Last time out, it was a disappointing loss against Spurs away. Up next, it's time to see whether we've got what it takes to be a CR7 sprinkled Manchester United at Carrow Road. And who better to give us all of the latest Manchester United insights than huge United fan and sports reporter for Express Sport, Alex Turk. Alex, thank you, matey, for coming on today. I really appreciate it. We obviously met on Redmen TV. I liked it. I like the cut of your jib. I thought I'd get you on the show today. What's the mood like at Old Trafford right now?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Pleasure to be here. The mood it's a stark contrast to the last time I spoke to you, to be honest. I was sort of the brunt of the jokes on Redmen TV.
You're going to come for me today, aren't you? You're going to get me back today. I can feel it.
You've given me a prime opportunity here. but no, Rangnick's appointment, it's been met with sort of a sense of sort of surprise by how sensible a decision it is. United, they usually go for the blockbuster names that create buzz on social media. But no, it's a really good sort of football appointment. And on a personal level, I'm in dreamland because a few weeks ago, it was probably a month ago now, when we were sort of in the rut, I was like, I want Rangnick into the end of the season, then we can go for the big dog, Erik ten Hag, next summer. And that's looking like a real possibility now. So unfortunately for you guys, on the back of 3 really good results in the league, I don't think there's sort of a worse time to come up against United this season. But
don't give me that. We're only 30 seconds into the show. God, I'm going to regret giving it to you on Redmen now.
Yeah, you've brought me on to speak truth. So,
mate, we must talk about your last game. You won 3-2 against Arsenal, and despite the goals conceded, I actually felt that it was an impressive Manchester United performance, particularly the fact that Ralph's just in the building and he goes and delivers what I perceive as a much more Manchester United performance in terms of what you perceive your DNA should be as a football club. What did you take from that result, from that performance, and how do you think it will impact our game this weekend at Carrow Road?
Yeah, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was at the club, he was very stubborn with his 4-2-3-1 system, and it hasn't been working this season. Now, obviously, Carrick took charge of the Arsenal game, and it was quite a similar setup, but you could see there was sort of that bounce. The players knew Rangnick was coming in, and you could see that they all have a point to prove. They're all fighting to sort of stay in the team, and obviously after Arsenal, we've played Palace at the weekend.
Yeah.
And Rangnick revealed after full time that he'd only had 45 minutes on the pitch with the players, which makes United's performance much more impressive. On paper, it's a 1-0 win against Palace, but the performance. After it sounds ridiculous to say, but it's felt like for years under Solskjaer, United, there's been no identity. There's been no plan, but we set up in a 4-2-2-2, flat back 4, 2 blocks of 2, and it was so refreshing to see sort of a structure, some organisation, some intent right from the first whistle. Fred and McTominay stay close to each other throughout the whole game. Sancho and Fernandes were relentlessly pressing the ball, and you've obviously got Rashford and Ronaldo up front. And I think I read something earlier. United won the ball in the final third 12 times against Palace, and that's the most we've done it in a single match since Sir Alex Ferguson. So,
wow.
Yeah,
that is the stat. Because I must admit, Alex, I'm reading a lot of media hype around this sort of Ralph Rangnick pressing football, and we've just released our TNC podcast, and I must admit I've slammed it. I'm thinking to myself, hang on a minute, are we really going to praise Manchester United players for just running more? But maybe that's a bit of a basic opinion, and is that really just how much of a bad state you were in? Like, it's a great stat that you bring up of course, one of Fergie's games, and then of course what the one under Ralph at Palace. But for me, I'm thinking, right, so you got your players running. Like, is that not what they should do every game?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that is how bad it was. But it's not just about the running; it's about the counter pressing that we were seeing. It's about United keeping their shape, defensively stable. Palace, they've been one of the league's most efficient counter-attacking teams this season. They didn't have a sniff. They had one chance from a set piece near the end, which they missed. But apart from that, as I said, Fred and McTominay, they were so compact. Sancho and Fernandes were working so hard to defend and attack. And we just looked. It was our first home clean sheet since April, I think. So we just looked like a completely different team, which is crazy to think. Ranić only had one day before before taking charge.
That is just absolutely bonkers. And and I can't quite remember the stat before Ralph came in, Alex, / before Carrick's game at home to Arsenal. But there was a hell of a stat about Manchester United and Norwich. Maybe people could let me know in the comment section. It was to do with either goals scored or goals conceded, one of the two. And it was and I was thinking, how the hell are United down there with us? I can't remember it. And Alex, you really rack your brains. Can you genuinely, hand on heart, think of a single way that Norwich City can hurt you at Carrow Road this weekend?
If you're asking me that a few weeks ago, I would have said Norwich will probably have a field day playing on the counter, exactly like Watford did. You can use Billy Gilmore to quickly transition to play to your attackers and sort of take advantage of the disorganized defense. But now, we've played one game under Ralph, so I don't really want to sort of come on here and say, we're God's gift. We're not at all. We're still vulnerable. But
where are you vulnerable though, Alex?
That's the difficult thing, because you're playing against a team this weekend that have scored.
You don't believe it, do you? You don't believe we're gonna. You don't believe we're gonna even scratch you this weekend, do you?
You've got to look at the facts. Norwich have scored 8 league goals this season. Listen, I think Dean Smith, he's definitely brought in much more defensive organisation, and that's been clear the last few games, maybe barring Spurs where you sort of collapsed a bit. So honestly,
you don't.
No, I think Norwich will play for the draw, to be honest, and I think you'd be very happy with a draw. And the onus will be on United to take the game by the scruff of the neck and sort of break you down.
I agree, Alex. I do agree. I think that. I mean, if you were to offer me now a draw, I'd certainly take it. But we will get onto this weekend's game in just a short moment. But before we go there, Alex, I want to ask you about who are the United players in form, though? Because I can't really quite work out. Because I feel like players for United this season have had maybe 2-3 games and then they've dropped off across the park, by the way. So who is kind of it can't be Fred, surely, going into this game against Norwich City. Or is it genuinely Fred?
No, it's not Fred. Fred, do you know what? He's been good the last few games. He's sort of, you can see he's really fighting to sort of keep his place in the team. And I think Ranić coming in will help Fred. I think his style of play will benefit Fred. And once we get a proper defensive midfielder in, and Fred's sort of given the freedom to do his sort of pressing, energetic role as the 8, that'll help him. But right now, the obvious one's Cristiano Ronaldo. He hasn't really been out of form since returning. He just continues to deliver. He's registered 12 goals and 2 assists in 15 starts this season. So basically a goal involvement every game. And, when I don't want to undermine you at all, but when he's coming up against the likes of Grant Hanley, he's got to be rubbing his hands.
Mate, I cannot wait. Do you know what is going to happen? I'll tell you this for free, Alex. Grant Hanley is going to absolutely clatter into CR7. I can see it. I can absolutely see it. I mean, yes, all right. You might take him a couple of times. He's going to chop him. That's inevitable. But I must admit, I'm living to see Grant Hanley clatter CR7. And actually, it's a really nice segue there, Alex. I want to ask you about Cristiano Ronaldo, because I always I always want to be fair to the opposition. You are my enemy, our enemy when we cross the white line, and I'm in the away end, and I'm going to be giving you and plenty of the other United fans the two fingers when the game kicks off. But I want to be fair too. I do not understand for the life of me this rubbish about CR7, about Cristiano Ronaldo. You've brought in arguably the best player in the world, and it seems like the media are creating this sort of villain story that he's somehow the reason why United's form has gone down. You've changed his team. He's not pressing enough. For me, mate, I'm planting CR7 up top. Everyone else can do the running. You're Cristiano Ronaldo. Do what you want. Do literally, if you're Cristiano Ronaldo, do what you want. Are you of that opinion or not?
Yeah, I think that the criticism that he's received and the criticism United have received since re-signing him has been ludicrous, to be honest with you. And there's a slight hint of jealousy there, I think, in honesty, because it's not just the media; it's sort of rival fans as well who've, they've been loving United, sort of having Odion Igalo up front for a year, and they're like, oh yeah, then Cristiano Ronaldo comes in, and they're like, oh, damn, okay. The argument has been that United would get worse by signing Cristiano Ronaldo, and I've been laughing it off. He's brought in a reliable source of goals, a leadership figure that we've needed, and in response to the argument that Ronaldo sort of come in to solely return the glory days, like I was watching Sky the other day, and it was that debate between Carragher and Keane, and Carragher was questioning why United signed him, and because he's not going to win, big honours this season. But you can't forget who United's owners are. The Glazers care about revenue, and three primary sources of that is sponsorships, shirt sales, and Champions League football. Ronaldo's shirt sale numbers are eye-watering, and the guy has single-handedly dragged United out of the Champions League group stage. So, from a playing and commercial perspective, his return has undoubtedly been a good thing, and I think it's about time people just dealt with that, to be honest.
Oh, mate, I'm with you. I always say facts don't care about feelings, right? And you've said it already. The stats do not lie with Cristiano. What he's delivered in, let's be honest, a Manchester United team that have been nowhere near good enough this season, and yet he's still delivered. He's been dragging the team along, as you say, getting them out of the Champions League group stages as well. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's nonsense. But I'm gonna flip this dynamic now, Alex. I've complimented your club. I've complimented Cristiano Ronaldo, but I might now be about to offend you again, like I did on Red Men. One of the things that has always frustrated me, and maybe it's jealousy as a fan of a smaller football club. One of the things that's always annoyed me about Manchester United, you go there as an away fan, and the PA says, "Welcome to the biggest, best, most fantastic, glorious, incredible football club in the world." And when I listened to that, I thought, that's actually really incentivizing the fans to actually definitely get one over you here, as we have at Old Trafford a couple of times in recent years, by the way, which shouldn't ever be the case. But I also thought, I wonder if that is the attitude at Manchester United, and I wonder if that's the reason why over the last few years, it's almost felt complacent. It's like you've rested on your laurels. It's like you've relied on the fact that you're the biggest club in the world. And if you keep saying you're the biggest club in the world, you almost live in this lie because you haven't achieved anything for years. And I must admit, maybe, as I say, maybe it's jealousy, but I thought that's a bit of a weird attitude to have, to be saying that sort of thing over the tannoy to the fans. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. What you've got to consider is, United have this brand that Manchester United is the biggest club in the world, and every single game, fans travel to Old Trafford from everywhere. So, Old Trafford, 75,000 people go every game. I would guess probably, 25,000 of them, if not more, are probably there at Old Trafford for the first time ever.
Yeah.
and they've probably experienced, and I think United will just want to give them that sort of
The
match day
best game.
experience. Yeah, like I don't, and I understand where you're coming from, and I don't necessarily agree with it. But yeah, it's just all about the brand with United, and that's that's it.
No, and I agree, Alex. But I need to challenge you more on this. This might get into a heated debate in a minute. But even you've just said we're the biggest club in the world. Well, what about Real Madrid? What about Liverpool? What about Bayern Munich? What about Barcelona?
Nah, what I said was it's the brand that Manchester United are the biggest club in the world. That's the brand. I didn't say I agree with that.
Oh, right. So that's the brand, not the facts, right?
Yeah. So Manchester United, it's a commercial club, and
Okay,
they
right.
want everyone to know that Manchester United is the biggest club in the world.
Oh, okay, I understand.
So,
This is quite educational. Thank you, Alex. That makes complete sense now. I couldn't get my head around why they kept saying we're the biggest club in the world. I'm like, I don't know, it just felt a bit arrogant.
they could very well be, like United aren't a small club, but they
Yeah.
do. I know what you mean. Every single game, the Tannoy, they really push that fact, and
Yeah.
that is just sort of, it's just part of like the match day experience. I think.
Yeah, it just annoyed me as an away fan, but there you go. And on that note, considering where you've dropped to in recent seasons, I want to ask you, Alex, what are the immediate, medium term, and long term goals, targets for Manchester United? Because you've gone from second place. I'm looking at you last season, thinking second place, really good baseline there, something to work on. That's where Man United need to be up there. And now you've dropped like an absolute fly. And do you think almost that fan expectation needs to change in line with those objectives?
Yeah, I think sort of medium term. Let's say until the end of the season, top four has to be, compulsory. When you've just finished second and you've had the summer transfer window that you have had, you've bought in Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho, Rafael Varane, big players. You cannot have the personnel in this current squad and not qualify for Europe's elite competition. Like that is just not acceptable. But I mean, despite the crisis that sort of ultimately led to Solskjaer's demise, we're only 3 points behind, fourth. And sort of with this somewhat favourable run of fixtures coming up over winter, it's a really good chance to cement that spot. So medium term, I'd say top four, ideally top three, but I just think City, Liverpool, and Chelsea, I think the level's too high. It shouldn't be with the squad we have.
Yeah, agreed.
Right now, I think while we're in this transitional phase, I think we're not going to catch them. But top four, a good FA Cup run, a trip to Wembley, hopefully a bit of silverware with that, to sort of stop the rot in that sense, and a respectable showing in the Champions League. And I think, could United spring a Chelsea-style surprise this season? Who knows?
Alex, do you believe in ebbs and flows in football? Like, one time you could be up there smashing it, winning the league. Next thing you're down in the dumps and you're buggered. Because we see this a lot in my opinion, I observe this in the Championship with certain clubs. I see it a little bit in the Premier League, but nowhere near as much. I'm now at a point with the Prem where I'm thinking, I have no idea how anyone gets near Liverpool, Manchester City, or Chelsea. I don't know, because not only have they got tons of cash, but they've got their shit together and they're organised and they're such a slick, well-oiled machine. And I almost feel like maybe, I guess what I'm asking you, Alex, is will Manchester United ever win the league again?
I do believe in ebbs and flows, but I feel like there has to be sort of a catalyst for that. Like Liverpool, Chelsea, and City, they can fall off, and they inevitably will fall off from this ridiculous level at some point. You've got to consider. Klopp's not going to be around for it. It's like when Fergie was at United. I bet fans were like just waiting for the day that he'd left.
Yes,
and I think Klopp and Pep will leave Liverpool and City in a much better state than Fergie left the United squad.
Okay.
However, you cannot expect them to maintain that level, under a transitional phase. But that's where I'm sort of hoping. You say United are never going to win the league again. I'm hoping if them two leave sort of in 4 or 5 years' time, United have had a few years under a top class manager. We've still got a young squad, players reaching their prime. Yeah, that could be sort of our time to reclaim the perch.
Mate, well, first of all, it was a question, not a statement. I believe Manchester United could do it, but I'm just looking at those boys now and I'm thinking, look at the talent they're producing, and just everything is like they're planning now for like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons in advance. And I'm sure Manchester United are doing that too. But no, interesting point. Alex, let's talk about Brandon Williams now, a player that, of course, we've got on loan from yourselves. Thank you very much, by the way. What a player. What have you made of him, first of all, in a United shirt? And what have you made of his loan move to Norwich so far?
Yeah, so Brandon sort of came through in 2019, and he actually played quite a big role in our league campaign that season. He made around 20 appearances, I think, overall, because I think Shaw might have been injured,
I was going to say that.
I think, and it was before we had Wan-Bissaka as well, I think. So he played quite a big part. I loved Williams when he came through. I loved his energy. I loved his aggression. But there was always that sort of sense that he has a bit to learn about sort of defensive awareness and game management as well. He tended to be quite reckless at United, and I think that sort of is that sort of yeah. I mean, how good did he look against Tottenham? By the way, I watched that game back and I was so impressed with him against Tottenham. I can't say I've watched Norwich religiously like you this season, but he looked so much more mature than his sort of final few appearances at United, and this loan move seems to be doing absolute wonders for him. I sort of, how would you rate his time at the club so far?
Well, it's really interesting you should say what you say, because I actually think you're bang on the money. I'm not really sure there's been much. I do definitely agree with the statement. He's matured as a player. I think it's good from Manchester United that you've allowed him to go to a club on loan so he can learn that side of his game, how to actually defend with. There's a lot of risk in Norwich, right? If you cock up, the ball's in the back of the net. At United, if you cock up, more than likely someone's going to be able to pick up the pieces for you. It's really interesting that you should say about, I guess, Brandon's defensive behaviour, we might call it. We spoke to a chap from United Captured earlier on in the season when we signed Brandon, and he said the only thing about Brandon is his positioning. And I definitely would agree with that. I think we've seen that on a couple of occasions. There have been a couple of mistakes and they've all been punished. However, in the last 3-4 appearances for us, he has been absolutely sublime and actually a shining light in those results, in those performances. And there's a big reason why we went on that small unbeaten run. I love his aggression, Alex. He's so aggressive, and I think that will get him in trouble. But maybe this is a bit of a Brexit football opinion, but I love that. I love that in the game. I feel like we need more personality, more fight, more aggression in the game, and he's got a lot of soul about him, has Brandon. And I think that's why he'll get to the very top. And I do think he'll manage to break into Manchester United's team. So it'll be very interesting to see how you can break us down without him. Of course, this weekend we'll have Dimitri Giannoulis instead, so that will be fascinating. And I always ask this question, Alex: if you had to sign a Norwich player, and given the players that you've got at your club at the moment, I don't think you probably would. But if I forced you in January to sign a Norwich player, who would it be and why?
We'll take Brandon back to compete with.
You cannot say that. That's a cop out.
You can have Wan-Bissaka in return.
That's a cop out. I'm not accepting that.
No. In all seriousness, while United are prioritising sort of defensive midfielder, I really like. Is it Matthias Norman?
Norman. Yes.
I really like Norman. Gilmore unsurprisingly gets lots of plaudits among your midfielders, but I think Norman this season has looked like a Premier League quality player. So let's see where he goes. I also think Milo Rashica as well, or Milo Rashica.
Yeah.
He's a really dangerous player, and I'm sort of hoping that he'll still be absent for you guys this weekend. So
I was going to say, Alex, I've got news for you. Both are doubts for the game against you. So enjoy.
Music to my ears.
It's the first time someone said Norman, and of course, like technically, Norman's a loan player, of course, loan with an option to buy should we survive. He is just an absolute baller. So it's good for you to give him that recognition, and certainly would be a player that wouldn't look out of place in that Manchester United team, in my opinion. Let's talk about some of the games over the years, Alex, that we've had. Are there any memorable ones for you that stand out for good reasons or for bad reasons?
Yeah, for me, the one I most fondly look back on, it was a 4-0 win at Old Trafford, and it was on the way to our last Premier League title in 2013. And
was that Kagawa? Did Kagawa score?
Yeah,
I remember it because I was there. That's when they did we're the biggest, best football company. I'm like, fuck off! Don't give me that. You want to be a score?
I'm surprised you were annoyed if Shinji Kagawa scored a hat-trick against you.
But by the way, Alex, I tip my hat to him that game. He was phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Well, yeah, we were warming up to play Real Madrid in the Champions League a few days ago.
Up. Oh, here he is. Here he is.
I've been waiting for this since my Redmen TV appearance. But I just remember there was sort of a sense of sending a message to I think it was Jose Mourinho's team. As you say, Kagawa of all people scored a hat-trick that day, Rooney with the other, and we went. I think it was like 13 or 15 points clear at the top. So if you don't know what you have until it's gone.
We had Declan running goal that game. I just want to put that in. That was our second choice goalkeeper. We love Deck on TNC podcast. We've interviewed him. He was our second choice though. So simmer down a little bit. I think that day on the old sweepstake on the club cabbage, I got on, which is what we call our coach that takes us to the games. I think I got Sebastian Bassong or something to score. This is just never gonna, or someone equally as bad. Okay, so you've said for any bad games you remember?
Yeah, in sort of a huge contrast, one of the most dire displays I've seen at Old Trafford was that 2-1 defeat in 2015. My word, I think we went 2-0 down, I think, before Martial scored, and it just looked so uninspiring because we were several games without a win under Louis van Gaal, so the mood was already just a shambles then. And I think that loss meant that I think it was like Spurs or Arsenal leapfrogged us into the top 4, and we just didn't get back in. We finished 6th that season. But yeah, I read up on it earlier actually before I came on, and it was a cold December night, like it's going to be on Saturday, and it was Norwich's first win at Old Trafford since 1989. And I think it lifted you guys out of the relegation zone as well. So that must have been quite a memorable night for you.
Yeah, it was Alex Neil. I believe it's Alex Neil. I hope I'm correct. And it was Cameron Jerome scored. But that game is always looked upon fondly by Norwich fans because Alexander Tete, who never scores ever, scored a toe poke against De Gea. So ever since then, it was a Tete toe poke, and the sort of loving for that player blossomed from there. I'll share a game that I remember from over the years, Alex. Cast your mind back to 2005. Alex Ferguson, the greatest Premier League manager of all time, probably a fact. I think it's a fact. That is a fact.
That's factual, yeah.
Yeah, you go on. I'll big you up a little bit, and now I'm going to batter you down. He rocks up to Carrow Road. Yeah, he's got Wayne Rooney, he's got Rio Ferdinand, he's got Edwin van der Sar, he's got Vidic, and of course he's got a young Cristiano Ronaldo. And what happened? We beat you 2-0. Leon McKenzie, he took his shirt off and showed his guns. Big Dean Ashton, the original Dino. Could we see a repeat of that? Could we see a shock? Because that's a shock, Alex. That game was a shock. It was the same narrative. We've got no chance. It's on Manchester United. Could it happen again?
Listen, I can't say I do because I would have been 5 or 6 at the time. But when you mentioned it earlier, I did actually look through the history files, and United were on a 20-match winning run going into that, and Norwich.
Really?
Yeah,
Were they? Oh,
yeah. And Norwich hadn't kept a clean sheet for 6 months. So, there was most likely sort of an air of complacency going into that, and United and the fan base, including myself, we've got to avoid that going into this weekend. I do apologise. I haven't spoken that highly of Norwich today, but I'm not underestimating them. And they're in the Premier League for a reason. And as I said earlier, we're still slightly vulnerable, and anything can happen.
Indeed, as it did on the last time we played each other at Carrow Road, which was a cup game, Alex, if you remember. It was behind closed doors during the lockdown period. It was a 2-1 win for you. Igalo scored. By the way, I really enjoyed that. I actually enjoyed that. I really liked to see him do well for Manchester United. Weirdly, I just liked the story. And then, of course, Todd Cantwell equalised with a brilliant goal from, I believe, the outside of the box.
It was, yeah.
And then right at the death, where I'm thinking, if we get this to penalties, we could actually get to the next round. Harry Maguire rocks up and puts one in the back of the net. What do you remember from that game?
Yeah, it was another cup run. We just it was the quarterfinals, wasn't it? I think
it was or was it round of 16? One of the two.
I think, because I think we'd beaten Derby.
Maybe it was quarters then.
I think it was, because we beat Derby in the round of 16. Igalo scored in that game as well, and sort of it was sort of the brink of him becoming like a cult hero, and it was absolutely But I mean, I hope that it won't take another late winner this time around. I really want to see United just dominate a game like we did against Palace, but with a convincing scoreline, because listen, we haven't had one since we beat Newcastle 4-1 in like the first week of September, and that wasn't anything special. So,
we will see.
Yeah, so I mean, switching Igalo to Ronaldo is quite the upgrade from the last time we came over.
All right. Don't rub it. Right, let's get to the crux of this now, Alex. Before I start giving you abuse on this episode of the TNC Oppo, head to head over the years, and obviously you guys are in front by a country mile. We've won 17 games. You've won 40. We've drawn 15 times. So, crunch time now. Score predictions, but on TNC we do it differently. What is your head saying, and what is your heart saying?
My head, I'm expecting a routine 2-0 win for United. I think we're gonna go do the unthinkable, back-to-back clean sheets, Fernandes, and then a Ronaldo penalty. That's my head.
And by the way, it's going to be a VAR decision, isn't it? United always, always get them.
For now, my heart, I'd love a battering. I'm sorry, I would love an absolute battering. How about another 4-0? Sancho hat-trick, Greenwood off the bench.
You are taking the piss, aren't you? Yeah, I'm half tempted to not even air this.
You've asked me what my heart wants. That's all.
2-0 and a 4-0. Goodness gracious me. Okay, well, I've not thought about this yet, so here we go. My head is saying, especially off the back of a 3-0 defeat, this is going to be really tough for Norwich. I do think this is a game where Manchester United will get more time. I do think this will be a game where Manchester United will get multiple chances, especially from outside the box, and you've got the players to plant them in the back of the net. So my head is saying, if I'm honest, and I'm sorry to disappoint the TNC subscribers, it's a closely fought 2-1 loss. No more, though. No more than that. My heart is saying, Alex, my heart is saying, Norwich City come to the Premier League. We always beat one of the big boys. And I'm telling you now, Alex, clip this up. this is the game. This is the game that Norwich City shock the Premier League and get a shithouse 1-0 win. And guess what? It's going to be Grant Hanley, and do you know what he's going to do? He's going to kick it onto Ronaldo's backside for an OG into the back of the net. There you go. That's what my heart is saying.
Well, I'll be leaving the internet for a week if that happens.
Alex, mate, honestly, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, mate. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you so much to all of the TNC subscribers who are watching. If you've enjoyed this episode of the TNC Oppo, do give it a thumbs up if you watch on YouTube. Get involved in the conversation on social media as well. Go give us a follow on Instagram. Yes, that's right. I'm saying Instagram this week because we're close to 16K at Talk Norwich City. And fingers crossed, the next time I speak to you Yellows will be after a monumental, iconic, historic victory against Manchester United at Carrow Road. Dino.